I will give a little background for everyone's benefit. We're doing a presentation on the League paid leave study. And as you may recall, about a year ago, we talked about having a study on living wage. And Peg, who is my right-hand person on this committee, did some homework and found out that the League does have a policy and a position rather on living wage. And secondly, there was no way we could make social change. I mean, there wasn't some avenue to make concrete changes other than make good statements that were important. So we decided to pivot to paid leave because it was so obvious that it affects so many people in so many different ways. The lack of it is what we're talking about. And so our committee consists of Peg Pendergast, Judy Ansel, Stacy Bartlett, Dr. Teresa Nadeau, Carrie Kohler, who is with us from St. Louis Women's Foundation, and Rosemary Durkin, Cindy Cart, Pauline Wasserman, and Allie White. So we, in the process, we have a wonderful committee. Everybody came with expertise and did lots of hard work. They read the newspapers, they did research, they did writing, they talked to people, we interviewed people, and we came up with a 17-page report. And we can put that in the chat for you to, or on the website, but it's good information. And committee members can add to that when you start to ask questions. But anyway, it makes the statement why we need it and what we know and what we don't know and what we need to know. So out of that information, we decided we needed more research to really champion a paid leave program in the state. We are talking about the state of Missouri, not the federal government and not local government. We're not talking about the legislative process. We're talking about the citizen ballot initiative. So that will take time. And so we've asked some foundations to help with the research. So at this point, I'm going to tell you about Bridget. And then after Allie starts, she'll bring Bridget into to hear, for you to hear her presentation. And a little background on Bridget. She's been a part of the Stand Up Kansas City Fannie Lou Hammer group. I've known her probably for 6 years or so. And she's been out on the front line. She's been featured with her family, pictured in the New York Times recently, and also quoted in the New York Times bestseller, The Sum of Us, What Racism Cost Everyone and How We Can Prosper Together. And she's going to tell her story, but I'm going to turn it over to Allie, who will take it from here. Thank you, Allie.
Thanks, Alice. As you've probably picked up on, this whole session, we're going to be hearing a lot of different voices. I'm going to ask you in the audience to volunteer some information. Anyone who's watching on Facebook Live is welcome to comment. And we can, every time that we talk about this topic with a different group, what we'd like to do is gather new insight, new perspectives, and continue to work that in to our efforts. So let me get the presentation up here. All right. So Alice gave a really great introduction to how we got to working on the issue of paid leave. We started from the living wage, and we really realized as we went on that the things that we could actually make some progress on were a different aspect of compensation and working life for working people, especially working women in Missouri. I'm just trying to give a brief overview of what we've learned so far. We could spend all day talking about this topic, so we'll be brief, but I hope to give some context so that we can have a productive conversation. I will stop occasionally to ask for feedback, like I said, so please do speak up when we get to that point. So as we studied the needs of people who work for a wage, we realized that one of the, some compensation that they don't often receive is paid time off of work to take care of family and medical needs. And the reason that we use that language when we're talking about paid leave, family and medical leave, is largely influenced by a protection that we do have, some workers, not all workers, on a national basis, which is the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA. So what are we talking about when we talk about paid leave versus the FMLA? First of all, FMLA leave is not paid. It is protected time off of work. It includes employees who work for a covered employer. So that would be a private employer that has 50 or more employees, a public agency at any level of government, or a public or private elementary or secondary school. It covers workers who have worked with the employer for at least a full year. So if you have a new job and you have a baby on the way and you need time off, you do not have FMLA protection if you've not been working there a year, for example. And it also covers workers at a location where the employer has at least 50 employees within 75 miles. So an employer where the workers are very thinly distributed, those employees may not be covered. People who are working remotely across the country from the main office may not be covered. I think you can start to see some of the gaps here. The people that we're missing are employees of those smaller businesses with fewer than 50 workers. Contractors are people who are ostensibly working independently, even if they work for a single employer full-time. Brand new employees, as I said, some of remote employees, as I said. There is no pay offered to people who are taking their FMLA leave. There are some benefits that are protected, including your health insurance must be maintained during that time. But when you're taking off time to deal with a family or a medical situation, birth or adoption of a new child, taking care of a spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition, those are expensive times. And for someone to be without pay during that time is really insufficient to protecting people when they really, really need support. I do want to touch on the reasons for taking FMLA that are covered, just so if you haven't ever needed to use it, just so that you're familiar. It covers the birth of a child, bonding with a newborn child within 1 year of birth, the placement with the employee of a child for adoption or foster care and to bond with that child, a serious health condition that makes the employee unable to perform the functions of their job. So if you have the flu for 3 days, that doesn't count. To care for the employee's spouse, child, or parent with a serious health condition, and then some specific situations related to a family member who's on active military duty. So you see, this kind of protection doesn't cover leave from work for routine preventative care, even for people with the kinds of conditions where they need, doctor's appointments on a monthly basis to maintain and to keep a condition from becoming severe, or any illness that's less than 3 days, or any of these moderate severity conditions that we all know exist that aren't fully debilitating, but you need time to deal with them from time to time. So with all of that in mind, knowing that our federal protection for family and medical leave is unpaid and has a lot of gaps, our goal is to look for solutions that we can advocate for that would achieve paid family and medical leave for every working person in the state of Missouri. So before I give Bridget the floor, I want to do the first interactive portion here. With that context in mind, what are some consequences that you see of the lack of universal paid family and medical leave for Missourians, either effects on individuals or effects on the community? I would ask that you please raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, wait for a gap in the conversation to speak up, and we'll just take 2 or 3 responses. I'll give you one for free. In this last COVID year, I expect you know, because it's been widely reported, that the pandemic has a disproportionate effect on workplace participation for women, especially women of color, many of whom have dropped out of the workplace more than other people, and many of whom don't have specific plans to come back because they don't see a way to make that work and still care for their family. So that was your freebie. see who can
So,
call on.
yeah. So Ally, that of course would mean that now you're setting the stage for long-term wage disparity, for long-term lack of benefits, because if you have a whole year where you are at risk for not being able to care for your family and all the bills, all the ways you need to, then you are playing catch up probably for twice as long going forward. So it's the long-term effects, I think, that are so devastating.
Mm-hmm. A short or a medium run of hard times can hold you back for much longer.
For much
Thank
longer.
you.
Exactly. You end up playing catch up when you get behind. It's kind of like exercising. You get out of shape in a month, it takes 3 months to get in shape.
Let's see, another, I think I saw Ann Calvert's hand, is that right?
Yep. Hunger. If you can't pay for your food because you missed work with no pay.
Yeah, right, and that's a more acute, urgent situation that could make whatever health or family situation you're dealing with at that time even worse. Let's see, I'll take one more. Oh, I see Anitra.
One of the things you lose, retirement benefits, you get behind on car payments and insurance and house rent. So not only hungry, you get your electricity turned off. If you're not working, you don't have the income to cover basic needs. And it affects the children and the grandma that's living with you that you're taking care of and all the other things.
Absolutely. It's not just about us as workers, it's about our dependents as well. Well, thank you guys. I'm glad that we're kind of getting creative juices flowing and thinking about the broader impacts here and not just talking about a benefits package for a specific employer in a specific situation. So I think that now that we're in that mindset, it's a really great time to hear from Bridget. I'd love to hear what you have to say about your experience and why we need paid leave in Missouri. Is it all right if I continue leaving this screen up, or would you like your your face to be front and center? Because I can stop sharing.
I'm good either way.
Let's see, I think we were going to record your portion and see if we could use it again later. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'll resume when you're done.
Sounds good.
There you go.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank Alice Kitchen and the League of Women Voters for inviting me to speak with you all today. As they mentioned, my name is Bridget Hughes and I live in Clay County, Missouri. I'm a McDonald's worker and a leader in Stand Up KC and the Fight for 15 in a Union, as well as a leader in the Fannie Lou Hamer's Women's Committee. I'm a working mother with 3 beautiful children, Trayvon, Rayana, and Desmond. As you know, 2/3 of workers in the fast food industry are women. 95% of home healthcare workers and childcare workers are also women. And it's no accident that these workers in these industries are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. But it's not just our pay. Like many mothers who are living in poverty, I have had a high-risk pregnancy with all 3 of my children. When I had my middle child, Desmond, I was working at Walmart. And when I was 7 months pregnant, I passed out at work while washing dishes in the deli. When I woke up, I was in the ambulance with paramedics hovering over me. I have diabetes and asthma, and the doctor told me I was iron deficient. I started having contractions and I nearly had my son early. The doctor told me that I was supposed to be on bed rest for a month. And while Walmart accepted my doctor's note at first, I was then, when I returned to work a month later, was told that since I was going on maternity leave in a few weeks, that I was no longer needed. And they let me go. When I had my 3rd child, Rayana, I was working at Domino's and they threatened my job and forced me to return to work 2 weeks after delivering my daughter. I went back to work because I was broke and scared of losing my job with a newborn baby and 2 other children to care for. A few weeks after returning to work, I had medical complications and I overstrained my body because I did not heal properly. And I went to the hospital and was ordered to be on bed rest for a week. When it was time for me to return back to work, still at less than 6 weeks from delivering my daughter, I was told that I had been replaced. As a result of that, we fell behind on our rent and got evicted. And even more recently, during the coronavirus pandemic, I've had to quarantine 4 different times due to exposure of the virus. One of those times including my daughter testing positive for COVID. Luckily, my daughter was okay and I tested negative all 4 of those times. But those 14-day quarantines meant that I have missed 8 weeks of work that were all unpaid. Fast food workers are almost never given any kind of paid sick days, despite the fact that we are the ones making your food. All of that unpaid time off would have left me and my family in the streets had we not gotten our stimulus checks. As a working mom, I can hardly tell you how many times I've had to go to work sick just to make sure that I would have enough money to pay the rent and keep the lights on. And there are more times than I care to count where I've had to choose between taking care of one of my children while they are sick or going to work because we couldn't afford to lose the money. I should not have to choose between my duties as a mother and my ability to provide. Every worker deserves paid sick days. That should be a basic human right. And it would bring all of us closer to having jobs where we don't have to sacrifice our dignity or our health in order to survive. Paid sick days would also help our coworkers and our communities stay safe. One of the most important lessons of the coronavirus pandemic is that your health and my health are tied together. In the labor movement, we have a saying that an injury to one is an injury to all. And when it comes to sickness, this is literally true. Because when we go to work sick, we are passing that on to our coworkers and our customers who are then taking that back to their families. I'd like to conclude today by telling you all something that I have never spoke about publicly. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get emotional, guys, bear with me. In fact, I've only shared this with my husband and some of my closest friends and family. Sorry. 3 years ago, I found out that I have cervical cancer. I went in for my annual checkup and I got my pap smear and found out that I have abnormal cells. I went in for a biopsy a week later and found out that I had cysts on my ovaries. I wasn't surprised about the cyst because I already knew that I had polycystic ovarian disease. Oh, sorry, guys. But I also found out that some of my cells came back as being cancerous. So I went back in for an MRI, which showed that the cancer had already spread to my cervix. The doctor told me that I would need to have my entire cervix removed, and if that didn't work, I would need to do chemotherapy. I don't have health care, and I can't afford to pay out of pocket for the surgery. And because I'm already $20,000 in debt for medical bills from when I had my daughter and because of my diabetes, also, I cannot afford to miss the 1 to 2 weeks of work that the doctor told me it would take for me to heal from the procedure. And I'm afraid of what would happen if I had to get chemo and wasn't able to work at all. For the past few years, I have lived in denial and in a combination of fear, dread, and anger at the fact that I don't know what to do. I'm concluding by telling you all this because I want to show you the reality of poverty wages, lack of health care, lack of benefits like paid leave, and how it leaves workers and families like mine living on the edge. Winning things like paid sick days and paid maternity leave are crucial steps in the struggle for economic justice and racial and gender equality. The economy is supposed to be a system of production that allows us to produce the things we need to survive and thrive as human beings. But for millions of workers like me, it feels like we are sacrificing our very lives and our health so that other people can reap enormous profits from our work while we struggle just to survive. My husband and I both get up every day and go to work. Neither of us have health care, despite the fact that we both work for multi-billion-dollar corporations. I'm diabetic, but I have not had insulin for over a year because I cannot afford it. We don't get paid sick days, paid vacation, or retirement. Something is fundamentally broken in our society, and that's why I began fighting for $15 minimum wage and benefits like healthcare and paid sick days, and more importantly, for a union so that my coworkers and I can have a voice on the job and a say-so in our lives. I thank you all for taking the time to hear my story today, and I hope that you will join me and workers across the country in the fight for paid sick days and paid leave, for fundamental changes that we need so that we can have a government and an economy that works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I can't express enough how much it means that you would open up in that way to us. And I know that many people in their own lives or in their families' lives know stories like yours, and but for the people who don't, hearing directly from you means a lot. Thank you. All right, feel a little silly going back to PowerPoint slides, but that's what we're gonna do. And let me share my screen again. Yeah, there's a lot of thank yous coming in the chat, so I'm gonna give just a moment for those. All right, thanks again, sister. So as we're looking at kind of the state of things in Missouri, one important part of our research on the committee has been looking at the paid leave efforts that have already been successful. Have already either been voted in, and some have actually already been implemented in other states across the country. Colorado in particular just voted in their new system in November 2020. So it's not in action yet, but I think it's a good one for us to kind of break down the components that could exist in something that could be a ballot measure, or could be a framework in Missouri for a statewide paid leave program. The success in Colorado is a result of 8 or 9 years of hard work of building a coalition, of advocating, educating, and research. Let me pull up there's an organization called Better Balance that is a national nonprofit advocacy organization that uses a lot of different legislative and legal tools to combat discrimination against pregnant workers and caregivers in particular. And they advance supportive policies like paid sick leave. And they have a nice breakdown. Let me get to my window. Yes. So on their website at betterbalance.org, you can find a chart that summarizes the 9 states plus the District of Columbia that had, they last updated this, I believe, in January. And Colorado is on the far right. The text is very small, so I'll read the summary that I have instead of trying to scroll all the way through it. Some things to think about are the way that this particular state program compares to FMLA. Their particular program is referred to as Family and Medical Leave Insurance. You can think of it a little bit like unemployment insurance. It offers a percentage of the worker's normal wage using a formula that's based on the state average weekly wage. And then there's a cap on the total amount that can be earned per week through the family medical leave insurance program. It does last up to the same 12 weeks as FMLA. The reasons that one can take that leave are very similar to FMLA, plus they added safe leave, which is a term that refers to time off of work to take care of medical and non-medical needs that result from abuse, domestic violence, or stalking. So if someone needs to move on short notice to get away from an abusive partner, for example. It is funded. Well, let me talk about qualification first. It covers smaller workplaces than FMLA does. Instead of 50 employees being the line, 10 is the line for what counts as a small business. The employees qualify sooner. They only have to have been working at their workplace 180 days to qualify instead of a full year. And instead of having to work a certain number of hours to qualify for this insurance, they have to have earned a certain amount of wages. Just a difference in where that line is drawn. Let's see, it's administered under the state's Department of Labor and Employment. And it's funded 50-50 between the employer and the worker. So it's a deduction that comes out of the paycheck and then a payroll tax that's paid by the employer, funding coming from the employer. And the employer can opt to pay more and cover the employee's portion if they wanted to do that as an incentive or a benefit for recruitment purposes. Smaller employers, those with less than 10 employees, can opt into the program if they want to enable this benefit for their employees. And if they don't, then their employees can opt in if they're willing to pay 100% out of their paycheck to go into this family and medical leave insurance. So there are other models. I won't go into the other states because, like I said, we could do this all day. But Colorado is a really interesting example because they just got it passed. It's something that uses something like the existing structure of unemployment insurance, which we all know is not perfect. But it's something that is familiar, I think, to a lot of workers and a lot of voters, that it mimics things that we already have, protections that we already have in place. So with that in mind, with those kinds of structural design and coverage qualification aspects, as an example from Colorado, excuse me, if we had a successful paid leave program or system in Missouri, what characteristics would it have? And we could talk about who would pay for it, what it would cover, who would qualify, how long you could take leave for, any aspect like that. What do you think would be an aspect of something that would be successful and effective in Missouri? Do the hand raising again. I've been a TA, I can wait.
Allie, can you repeat
Oh,
the question again?
I'm sorry, I didn't put it back up on the screen. Let me do that. Let me switch my share. I just realized that there we go. If we had a successful and effective paid leave program in Missouri, what would be some characteristics of that program? Janelle.
I think that employer contribution, I think employers have an obligation to their employees, just as employees have an obligation to their employers.
Donna. Donna, I don't hear you yet.
I unmuted,
Thanks.
thank you. I definitely believe that you have to go to the smaller businesses, a smaller number of employees. My sister ran a cleaning business, and one of the ways that she stopped the revolving door was to offer medical insurance. And I think things like this have payoffs to the business, that there's really a benefit besides the employee. There's a benefit of not having to orient new people all the time to the job.
For sure. And Anitra again.
How about a system like workman's comp, only for leave? If you're injured on the job, you can get workman's comp. But if you're not injured on the job, if you have a child with medical needs, you don't get anything when you take off. But if it was similar to workman's comp, and it would be paid by the employer, and it'd be like an insurance fund to cover people who need it, and should start, like Donna suggested, much smaller. You know, if you hire more than 2 people or pay for more than 60 hours of work between your employees, then it kicks in.
Ooh, a total number of hours worked of all your workers is that's a threshold I haven't heard of before. I like that idea. Thanks. How many hours of work are you paying for?
Yes. And then they could get maybe not a full paid leave if you're only working 20 hours, but you would get a percentage, 20 hours worth, when they were talking about, 80% of their pay or 20% of the pay. It would not be probably what they need to survive on, but it would help.
I take the edge off at least. Hopefully we can, we can
That's
aim
where
for
the COVID payments were not enough to totally survive on, but it allowed you to catch up on a few things and keep the wolf farther away on the other side of the gate instead of at the front door.
Well, thank you. Let's see. Sandy, please go ahead, and then I'll move on to the last topic I have.
How could we cover gig workers?
I think that's absolutely something we need to try to cover and include, because that's a big gap and a lot of benefits, not necessarily ones that are guaranteed at a federal state level, but many benefits that are associated with a good job are not provided to gig workers and contractors.
Right. This is going to be a growing segment of the economy, and it offers freedom for some people in their personal life too. So there's an accommodation there that I think works well for some people. They shouldn't have to sacrifice benefits.
Right. If you're only paid for the jobs that you take, what do you do in between?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Which is why the optimum would be a socialized medicine where all citizens or all residents living in the US have a socialized medicine plan. And then your sick leave is tied to that so that everybody inherently has that option.
Right. There's a lot of piecemeal efforts on specific topics like this. And I see several things in the chat, especially from Sarah Starnes, about what Biden's proposing. And that's really interesting reading. I definitely recommend when we have sort of general discussion near the end, if you take the time to copy those links out or save them. However, and we can learn from those examples, but our committee is very focused on learning more about the state of play in Missouri, what workers already have this sort of benefit through their private employers, what workers don't, and really getting some more definite numbers on the situation so we can understand where the gaps are and what we can do to help fill them. And that is actually exactly where I was going to go next. So let me get my notes back, and here we are. So how do we take action on this topic? And where we're at as a committee is that our objectives are to build relationships with individuals, constituency groups, and formal organizations, funding agencies, runs the gamut, learn more from each other and share the knowledge that we've gained in order to form a coalition for paid leave in Missouri. And this is something that would be happening with or without us. There are other groups already on this track. Some, for example, like Missouri Jobs with Justice, are currently doing their own research and polling on a few variations of specifically a paid sick leave plan. But there are a lot of, there's a lot of interest, a lot of concern, and a lot of willingness to act out there that so we're trying to meet with a lot of different groups, learn what resources they have to bring to the table, what their priorities are, and figure out how we can work together to either create a proposal or sign on with a proposal that already exists that would provide this paid family and medical leave for every working person in the state of Missouri, which is really the bottom line. What we've seen in our work is what we're missing. Let's see what time we're at. We're at 10:43 already. So I think instead of running down the list of who we've talked to and what they've said and that sort of thing, I think where we should go now would be to our breakout rooms so that we can talk a little bit more in smaller groups, take some notes, and kind of come back for general Q&A to wrap things up. So what our committee really wants to ask of the general membership and anyone else who's attending, watching this meeting, is we would like to know who should we be talking to next about this topic? Who could we learn from, and who has the ability to help? We're looking for 3 groups of suggestions, either people who would benefit from paid family and medical leave, individuals, organizations who could be allies and may agree with some or all of what we're going for here, and resources, research that you know of that's been done, people or organizations who have particular insight from personal experience or who have particular expertise or have funds, have access to devoted voters, have political power, people who benefit from paid leave, allies in this effort, and resources. What we're going to do is, if we can, once the breakout rooms start, we're aiming for about 5 in a room. So how many folks do we have on the meeting right now?
40.
We're aiming for about,
There's about 40, 39.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we have about 8 or 9 breakout rooms, then we can be in groups of approximately 5. In your group of 5, you're going to pick one person to take some notes, handwritten, type, whatever. And let's see, can we do 10 minutes?
Well, here's the group again. You were going to say something, Sue?
Yes, AAUW does major research projects. And I should have said that when I mentioned AAUW before. So I will certainly check about that, and we can add that. Alice knows all about AAUW.
Alice, have you approached the AAUW on this?
I shared the paid leave study with them and with the group in St. Louis.
Okay, so Sue,
And
maybe you
then
can
Carrie's on the line here.
give us a boost.
Yeah, I think they'd be good. They are an ally for sure.
We're being returned.
Oopsie. Okay.
And we're back.
Yep, we are.
Where's my, here we go.
This is what I want to see.
Got the share back up. Great. Well, I know that in my room, we definitely covered a lot of ground in 10 minutes. I hope that was the case for everybody. Like I said, if you have anybody in your group who is jotting some notes down, ideas or names, contact information, anyone who's willing to talk to our committee more about their own experiences, whatever, you can either copy and paste that into the chat, or Alice's email should be on the screen now, and you can send that to her at a later time. And let's see, what time are we at now? Yeah, we're at 11. So I don't want to, I'll leave this slide up for a while, but we could take a little bit of general Q&A if there are a couple of questions, but then I know we've got regular meeting business to take care of. So Sandy, would you cut it off whenever that's appropriate? Thank you. Okay, I saw Marcia's hand, I want to say.
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you say Alice's email is where we would need to send our note?
Yes, and that should be, it's in the kitchen ak@gmail.com.
Oh.
And if I'm sharing the right thing, it should be on the center of your screen right now, or the center of the slide.
Yeah.
Right above the list of categories.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it. I see the how to take action for paid leave. Oh, there it is. Okay, there we go. In the kitchen. Sorry about that.
Well, thank you for asking. I wouldn't want to miss what you have to send. So. All right. I do see a lot of people still have their mics on for being in the breakout rooms. So if you don't want to be heard, please switch that back off. Any other questions? Especially if we can clarify, clarify something that was an issue of confusion in your smaller group or anything like that.
This is Crystal. I have my hand up, and I do have one question for you. Have you got, we brought up a couple good things in our group. Have you got the buy-in for the employers or the Economic Chamber of Commerce? Because I think, as a federal employee and a veteran, that's the biggest issue is with individuals, companies, because they feel like they're losing something when they, Amazon just, try to unionize and it got kicked back. So I was just wondering.
That's something that we're aiming for. So we've talked to a few groups that are more of the Chamber of Commerce variety, employer or business groups, and kind of explained why we think this is important, why we think it's good for businesses to have low turnover, why it's good for communities to be made up of people who can afford to buy their groceries when they're sick. And so we're open to those conversations and we're actively having those kind of conversations. We don't, and that's part of the calculus of what's achievable. That's about all I really have to say about that, is that we're reaching out and having conversations with employers and with those kinds of associations, as well as associations of workers, because we think that we need to understand what would be a deal breaker for them, or what kind of arguments are persuasive for them. In large part because a lot of voters, even if they don't own a business, imagine themselves as someone who could be an entrepreneur one day. Voters like to think, imagine that they might one day run a small business and might be motivated by seeing the advantage of this kind of protection for employees of a small business. Judy, thank you. I will probably be able to answer this better as well. Judy, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the unmute was stubborn. Sorry. The thing is, yes, it's really important for us to get some employers on board, but we have to keep in mind that we need allies whose interest it is basically who will be beneficiaries, because that's what's going to drive this thing. If we cannot get substantial numbers of working people on board with this, then the employers won't care that much. And certainly the politicians won't care that much. And so, like we just simply have to become more grassroots. That's all I'd say about it. In order to,
it's critical for us to understand what us as the working people of Missouri actually need. And if we're pushing for something that is actually filling a need and is actually going to help, then that enthusiasm and that effort can drive this thing.
It's true.
In your analysis that you've done, do you know anything about what percentage of employees in the state would not be covered, by the 50 employee or greater rules, and would have no benefits essentially?
Yes, Judy, I think we've got some better numbers very recently. So I'm also looking to open this thing. So whoever finds it first.
Could you, is this a point to, time to raise the next stage of this with the Missouri-based research?
Yeah, I mean, can I just
Mhm.
respond, Ally?
Yes.
We don't
Please.
know. And that's why we are asking for the backing to be able to do research. We know, federally, the fact is that the better paid you are, the more likely you are to have paid family medical leave. The lower paid you are, probably about 50% of workers have it. But when you get down to the bottom 25% of wage earners, it's far lower who have it nationally. But we want to find that out in Missouri. And we want to find out how much turnover there is as a result of this. And those are hard questions to answer because we want to be able to show employers that it's actually in their interest to do this. So we have been reaching out, and Alice talked about this some, we have been reaching out to a number of funding organizations to try to get the funds to be able to do the research and then be able to answer that question. And not only answer that question, but then come up with a plan that we think fits Missouri.
That's exactly right. And as other, the other groups working on this issue, both locally and nationally, and we can benefit from the work that they're doing. And that's when I referred to some new numbers offhand, that we had just received some information from another group working on this sort of related topic. But really, in order to answer the kinds of questions we all have, and we know that voters will have, we need the research and we need the funding to accomplish that. So we need partners.
Have other states that have the initiative petition ability been able to get this kind of thing passed at the ballot
Yes.
box? Okay.
Yes. I could run down the list, but of the 9+ DC that had it as of the end of last year, several of them were through ballot initiatives.
I'm just curious, can you tell me what the ballot language was for the initiative petition in those other states?
I have that, but I'll have to try to find it.
Oh, that's okay. I was just curious. I thought, wow.
It was very, very detailed. This was Colorado, and it was extremely long, and so it probably wouldn't be very helpful to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is one of the things that we have included in our state-by-state research. We do have a PDF version of the 17-page report that Alice referred to, and so I can, when we move on to regular business, that's something I can find. I can get our link to that.
Okay.
And make that available in the chat. And a lot of information is covered in that as an overview, if you want to dig in.
Well, I think it's, the big issue, because the people that are really affected are under the poverty line, a lot of them, working hard, but under the poverty line. And that's sometimes a harder push. There's a war on doing harm, I think, to people that have less. Whether it's voting or whatever, that's where they hit.
And as absolutely true as that is, this is an issue that makes working life hard for even people with a high wage or salary. If you are going to be put through some kind of discipline process because you're taking, even if you're allowed to take an unpaid day now and then to deal with family issues, that may be frowned upon. You may have formal discipline started against you because you're slacking off and not doing your part. Especially at companies where the work culture runs toward a lot of unpaid overtime for the salaried folks, taking a day off culturally doesn't go super well. So it's something that affects people all, up and down the scale, but is absolutely most severe and critical for those of us who earn the least cash.
And it kind of helps with the hoped for ability to have benefits be portable and not job tied.
Yeah.
which is naturally, if we could get to, I will change the term socialized medicine to a single payer
Yes.
system. The only socialized medicine in this country is the BIA and the Veterans Administration. Those are the only socialized medicine models in this country. The rest of it is all about paid single payer system. And the closer we can get to a portable model, the better off we are.
The more universal, the better. The more kinds of workers covered, the better.
Not having to stay in a job because you weren't going to get benefits at the next place, you know, or lose them when you move. So let's move on to regular business here.
Well, Sandy, before we do that, could we all take off our mute buttons and give our Bridget a standing ovation?
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks again. I don't know if she's at her desk right now, but I do hope she hears it.
Catch it in the recording. That's well said. Thank you, Alice. I really want to thank Alice and her committee and Allie for running this. This is the league at its best. You know, this is really doing great work for a very obviously huge need in this country. So I'm very proud of the league's role in pushing this forward. It's wonderful. You guys are doing excellent work. Thank you. Let's do some business. This is boring after that, but we've got an annual meeting on May the 8th. So look for the call in the upcoming e-voter. I want you to all plan to attend and hear about what we've done this last year, help us elect new officers and approve a budget. We're growing and our capabilities are really expanding. So please make a note to be there on May the 8th. A week later, the state convention happens on the 15th of May. I'm digging around for a couple of more delegates to attend. We have up to 15 based on our membership that can attend. So let's make sure that we all have that in mind. Also,
Sandy, I would say that we have that many voting delegates, but others can go as observers if it's like past conventions.
thanks for making that distinction. Yes, I should have said we have 15 votes, but we want a lot of attendance. I think it'll be worthwhile. And there will be caucuses in the days prior where positions for concurrence or new studies will be shown, and we'll be featured in that as well. So let's all plan to attend. Let's see, Mary, do you want to talk a little bit about your redistricting day of action process?
Sure. Well, the actual day of action for the people-powered fair maps thing that comes from National League of Women Voters is, of course, on Thursday, April 29th. And the statewide event is going to be a Zoom presentation by Sharon Jones, who's an attorney and advocate. And I don't personally know her, but I hear great things about her from people who do. And her topic is, can we stop gerrymandering? And obviously everybody across the state is invited to that Zoom. Then for the Kansas City League of Women Voters day of action, ours obviously couldn't happen on the same day, but it happens within the same week. And that is on the following Tuesday, which is May the 4th at 7 p.m. Sean Sonker, I don't know if I pronounced that exactly right, Nicholson is presenting, and his topic is the fight for fair maps. He knows Sharon Jones very well, and they are sort of collaborating to be able to have him, I mean, it's almost a coordinated thing between the two of them in terms of what she covers and then what he will cover. And I don't know if I said the title of his is The Fight for Fair Maps. It too is a 7 p.m. Zoom. And I don't think there's anything else I can say about those right now.
I'll add to this. We had a chat in the early part of this meeting before most people were here. And unless Allie figures out how to do it, what Mary is looking for is somebody to add subtitles for song lyrics to a video. So if any of you out there can do that, knows how to do it, or has a friend that can do it easily, let Mary Lindsay know, please. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Sarah Starnes, you want to follow up with the same general topic?
Sure. So, you know, Sean Sonker Nicholson is, you know, he's the guy that was behind Clean Missouri, still is, really wanting these people to do these the community mapping. And just this morning, I set Heartland Alliance for Progress, hosting him on May the 10th, not realizing and paying attention that you guys are doing on the 4th, but hopefully we'll have some additional different people. But it's going to be the same topic, because we need to get a lot of people engaged in making these community maps, which will be offered to the folks that are actually doing the maps, probably the judges, so it won't be so partisan. Okay, so there's that. And then,
May I ask a question? Because I had understood from you that what he will be doing for you all is actually giving a training for doing the communities of interest mapping. Is that right?
Yeah, you guys are not doing that?
Well, not on that date.
Okay, well then join us and get the training. We won't be duplicating. That makes me feel better.
Won't be duplicating what I understand that you all are doing.
Okay. And then another thing Heartland Alliance for Progress is doing this Monday is, I think, going to be pretty useful. Judy Morgan is going to help us follow how laws are made, and not just like, well, this is the the official version of the process. You know, if you've ever listened in to lobbyists or lawmakers talking about this, they use this language, you know, that is regular people don't understand. And then, you know, the bills are called this, is House Bill this, and then it becomes Senate Bill this, and it goes back and forth, and the stuff gets put in the amendments that wasn't in the bill. And so she's going to help us understand the language and the actual process of the back and forth and whatnot. And then Rachel Podacek is going to talk to us about how to actively engage, such as doing the online testimony for the committees. And I learned from her that, or somebody, the online testimony is not always even read by the people on the committee. So you also have to send emails. So she's going to walk us through all that. And I think it'll be very helpful and very practical. I'll put the link for that in the chat to register.
Sarah, do you know if they're going to record that? I can't make it on Monday, but I'd really love
I will record it. I will record it. Yeah. And yeah, sure.
And it starts at what time? 6?
6 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Sarah, thank you. That's a lot of information in that. Ann Calvert is going to tell us about our latest social media endeavor. Ann, you want to surprise everybody with this?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we are starting a podcast. Our launch date is a week from Tuesday, 4/20.
Wow.
And the name of the podcast is Talk, Vote. I will be hosting along with Rachel Thompson, and our first guest is Alice Kitchen. So you get to come listen anytime and hear more about Alice and what she's done before she's done this project with us, the project that she's currently working on, and kind of hear about some of what she might be excited about for the future. You will be able to find the podcast after we upload it on that date on Tuesday, week from Tuesday. You'll be able to find a link to it on our social media. We'll make an announcement on social media, so keep an eye out there. Of course, you can look for it wherever you get your podcasts. Look for Talk, Vote. And yeah, and thanks for listening.
And that'll also be linked on the website I assume.
Well, it will eventually, yes, but there's a little bit of a lag, so we didn't want to announce that it would be on the website until we were sure that it would.
Okay.
But we will be talking about state and local politics, something we should all be talking about.
Excellent. Our social media presence continues to grow thanks to all of you. Let's see what else we have here. Laura, new member orientation.
Okay, our next new member orientation is going to be on a Wednesday. We started on a Friday, then a Thursday. It'll be Wednesday, April 28th. I will actually still be out of town, but Donna and Jean Ann are going to facilitate it, and Rachel's going to run the technology. So any new members, I will be sending out an email reminder to new members. Join the new member orientation and see what the league is all about.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more announcements?
Yeah, I'd like to make an announcement. The Missouri Voter Protection Coalition is working nationally with a number of organizations about voting rights. And on May the 8th, they wanted to have a motorcade, and this is just not them, but it's a national effort, to talk about the John Lewis Voting Rights Amendment Advancement Act, which is HR 4. HR 4 is similar to HR 1, which I'm sure you are aware of, which is currently in the Senate dealing with voting rights. HR 4 is basically trying to correct the Supreme Court decision of Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, where the Supreme Court eliminated the requirement that certain states had to have a permission before making changes to their Voting Rights Act. I don't know if you remember this or not, but anyway, they're trying to correct this issue. And the bill itself is being formed right now and won't likely be introduced until early summer, possibly June, maybe July. And they basically, the May 8th motorcade that they're discussing is to have people aware of and supportive of this kind of issue. So I noticed that May 8th is our annual meeting, and I don't know if after the annual meeting, people want to get in their cars and be part of this motorcade, which would include, hopefully, not only us, but other organizations. So I'm just in the beginning organization of this type of thing, but I just wanted you to be aware of it, and we'll probably send out notices through the league of the organization that we're going to do later in the month. So anyway.
If you have a hand in that, see if you can have it start early afternoon.
Okay. Well, that's what I do have a hand in that. So I will try and get it going early afternoon. What time do you think the meeting will be on May the 8th? About 10 to noon, 10 to 1?
About like what we're doing right now.
Yeah, okay.
Consider the evening news.
Good point. Other announcements, questions, concerns, thoughts? Well, thank you very much. It's
Alice has her hand up. Alice has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alice.
Tonight at sunset, there will be a COVID memorial at the World War I Memorial. It will be in your car caravan, candles, 548 candles lined up at the memorial, and you will be able to hear Mayor Lucas and Representative Cleaver and Burt Malone and the Kansas City Women's Chorus on your earphones or your radio, 7:30. And you'll hear bells all over the city, and the Marriott will have a candle on its facade.
Alex, what channel on the radio? 90?
It's FM 101, the Spanish channel.
101 FM. Okay.
And Sandy, I would just like to remind everyone to be contacting our U.S. senators to support the Senate Bill 1, which is HR 1, the People's Act. That was the Missouri Voter Protection Coalition was encouraging us all to contact them and say how important it is to support this act. So if you can send an email or make a phone call to Senator Blunt and Senator Hawley, it would be appreciated. We'd like to flood them with the idea that the people support this bill.
Thank you, Tana. Am I missing another hand here and there?
Hey, Sandy.
Yes.
Somebody was asking the question about the Facebook account. I think Daniel was asking, is the Zoom meeting being streamed on Facebook? And I know it is. And then it will also be up on our YouTube channel if folks aren't already subscribed to that YouTube channel.
Thanks, Peg. That's good. Yes.
I'll put in another plug for social media. If you're following all the channels, the league channels, we'll be posting the recap or the video there as well.
Thanks, Judy. Going once, going twice. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Really, really excellent meeting. Such good content. Thank you.